Hello, we're back with part 4 of my friend Rafe, who's been so kind as to give us a little more of his precious time. And in the end of part 3, he told us the sad, tragic story of how his father had committed suicide by drinking rat poison in front of him when he was only 3 years old. And your father and your mother were both Italian, so they weren't British citizens, right? So
no, they were both Italian.
Yeah, so they didn't have any kind of benefits or things from the government, is that right?
No.
Nothing?
No, none.
And so your mother's like on her own, no money, no job, and you were 3 years old at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And so tell us what happened, what she had to do with you.
Well, you know, first of all, she had to find, she didn't want to go back to southern Italy, because at that time it was pretty deprived. She also thought as well that, you know, by staying in the UK, she could probably offer me a better future than going back to southern Italy. So she got herself, she wasn't that well educated, well, she wasn't very well educated at all, you know, being brought up in a small fishing village. The only sort of job she could get was like in a hotel as a chambermaid, and she did get a job as a chambermaid.
How old was she when this happened, by the way, approximately, when your father
How old
died?
was my mother?
Your mother?
Well, my mother had me when she was very young. She was 17 years old when she had me.
Wow.
When that took place, she was only 20.
And you didn't have any brothers and sisters?
No.
So you're only child?
Yeah, the only child, yeah. And yeah, so yeah, it was a question of what to do with me, because she had to work. She did find a job, and she took advice as well from other people, and then the conclusion that she came to in the end was that I'd be better off being looked after in a convent, you know, living in a convent until her situation changed or whatever.
Where was the convent?
And that was it was in a place called Mumbles in Swansea, and it was called Nazareth House. It was a convent run by nuns.
Is it still there?
Still there, yeah. But I'm pretty sure it's still there.
I think so. Yeah, things like
I'm
that
pretty
last
sure.
forever,
I'm pretty sure it's still there. Yeah.
And
you know, it was a very, very huge place. Big grounds. I remember very big grounds and a massive building. You know, had its own church inside it, and
3 years old, though, that's a baby. I mean, that's a toddler. I mean, do you remember the day they took you there, or being separated from your mother or any of that? I mean, is that still in your mind?
I sort of remember it, yeah.
What do you remember?
Well, I sort of accepted that was the, you know, I was young, right? So I sort of accepted that was my deal, you know. And of course, I remember saying goodbye to my mother, but she did come and visit me once a month.
Okay, so at least you got to see
she did
her.
come and visit me once a month.
Did she stay for long? Or she just for a few hours, or
just an hour or two?
Wow.
Yeah, and you know, she would always bring me some goodies, like, you know, some cookies and some fruit, and you know.
How did they treat you there? Do you remember? Like,
well, you know, it was. I from what I can remember rightly, you know, the nuns were pretty cruel there. You know, I mean, if you'd done anything wrong, they would knuckle you over the head. You know, and you know, it was like quite a hard place to be. It was a dormitory type of life where, you know, there was like 30 kids in sort of one dormitory.
What about the ages? Were they separated by age? Everybody all together?
No.
How old were the older kids? The oldest kids that were there?
12, 13, 14.
And they'd been there their whole life, so it was really an orphanage, though. I mean, it sounds like an orphanage
sort of.
to me.
Yeah, I suppose it was. There were kids there who didn't have parents at all. You know, maybe they'd been, you know, killed in an accident or something, and then they'd been put in that orphanage to be looked after by the nuns. You know, but it wasn't the best part of my life. You know.
How long were you there?
3 years old until the age of about 10 or 11.
Wow.
It's quite a while.
Long time.
Yeah.
And I assume you were going to school there too?
Yeah. Yeah.
When did they start school? Like 5 or 6, or try to remember? I mean.
Well, there was like a school within the convent, you know, for the younger kids. And then I think when I reached a certain age, I think when I was 6, a bus would come and get me and take me into the town to another school, you know, like a proper school.
But how was that? How did those children treat you when you were going to proper school and they knew you came from the convent or the orphanage or whatever? They were fine to you?
Yeah.
No problem?
Yeah, no problem at all, no. I can't remember anything really bad happening with that.
Were you allowed to, when you were older, like say, 9 or 10, were you allowed to like leave or go out, or you had stayed right on the property the whole time? Or
I ran away a couple of times.
Oh, you did? How old were you when you ran away?
11. I ran away when I was 11. I think I ran away twice when I was 11, but...
I thought you said you left when you were 10.
Sorry, when I was 10.
When you were 10.
I ran away.
Where'd you go?
Well, I ran actually out of the grounds, and they were big grounds, and I couldn't run too far because there was nowhere to run to. There was nothing around. But I ran away, and then basically after a few hours, they would come by like in a sort of a jeep type thing and pick me up and bring me back.
And what happened when they brought you back? They punish you, or?
Well, not really. No, they didn't. They didn't really punish me. They just they just took it as a normal act for someone to do that, I suppose. But I just didn't like it there at all. It wasn't.
Was there anyone there, any of the nuns that were like kind to you, or like gave you affection, or?
Most of the nuns were okay, But then I remember there was a couple of the nuns, right, who were very, very strict. And if you just done something a little bit wrong, you would get like knuckled over the head,
Wow.
And that's how you were reprimanded.
And so, why at 10 years old what changed that you were able to leave?
My mother met my father, my stepfather, and in the hotel that she was working. And he was a merchant seaman, and he worked on the cruise liners. And basically, they formed a relationship, and they took me out of the convent and married. And that's how it happened.
Sounds like he was a good man.
He was a very good man. He was a great guy. A great guy. Very kind.
And so he was the father that you lost after all those years.
Sorry?
He became your father. Did you call him father, or you call him dad, or?
Well, yeah. He was my dad.
Wow.
And he was a great person. And they had a kid together,
Well, they did.
So I've got a stepsister,
Stepsister.
Isabella.
Where's she?
Yeah, she's back in Bournemouth.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, is your father still alive, or?
No, unfortunately, I actually found him. I found him dead.
Oh, God.
And it was a very, very sad thing because we had like a hotel, and I was sort of looking after. While he was still a merchant seaman, right? My parents bought a hotel in Bournemouth, and I was looking after the hotel for them. And he would carry on working as a seaman, but he wanted to retire, and and then he would have his hotel, And then one evening, he went out because he used to sleep in the rooms, And then one evening he just went up, and he said, "Can you put a video on for me? Because we put videos on for the guests."
Yeah.
So I put a video on for him, and I think I put a horror movie on or something, if I can remember rightly, And anyhow, he never came down for breakfast. And my mother, and that was very unlike him because it was sort of like 8 o'clock in the morning. He was always up at 6.
Yeah, seamen are like that. Very punctual.
Yeah, very punctual. And he never came down. And my mother was getting a bit nervous. We were downstairs preparing breakfast for the guests and stuff. And so she said, "Can you go up? I think he's in number room 26 or whatever it was. Go and see if he's still asleep or what's wrong with him. Maybe he's ill, And then I had the pass key, so I opened the door with the pass key, and I saw my father slumped over in the bed. Of course, I knew something was wrong, And you know, I went over to him, and I felt his forehead, and yeah, he was stone cold, you know.
How old was he?
He wasn't very old, actually. He was only like, I think he died when he was 56.
Wow. Did they ever find out what happened to him? A heart attack?
Yeah. The coroner said it was a coronary thrombosis. You know.
Well, hopefully he died in his sleep and just, you know.
Well, you know, I often wondered, was it the horror movie that I put on that might have caused that anxiety, you know? But you know, but your mind works that way, you know, and stuff, you know. But
so how old were you when this happened?
Sorry?
How old were you when this happened?
I was approximately 35, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, 35.
You'd already done a whole lot of things, you know.
Oh yeah, I've already done a lot of stuff. Yeah, already. I mean, I was doing this for my father.
You were just helping out.
Yeah, I was helping out for my father. So you know, he could then retire from being a merchant seaman, which he'd been a merchant seaman since he was 16, and I was doing that for him, you know. So you know, he could retire and have his own business going.
So what happened with your mother in the hotel then?
Well, we kept it going for a while, and then my mother sort of lost the heart to keep it going on, and she put it up for sale, and it got sold, and it got redeveloped into a part. Whoever bought that hotel, because it had a lot of land. It got made into apartments, it got redeveloped and got made into apartments, and somebody made a lot of money out of it. You know, I did say to my mother, you know, just don't sell it as a hotel. You know, don't sell it as a hotel. Hang on to it for a while, and you know, I'm sure that you know, you could really get a good price for it.
And how about your mother? What happened with her?
Well, after that, she just bought a house. She bought a house, and basically, you know, she didn't do very much. She still had my sister, of course, who was young, you know. At the time, my sister wasn't too old, and yeah, she just carried on with life, basically, you know.
And how is she still alive, or your mother? Yeah,
she's still alive. Yeah, she's not very well. I mean, she has 4 carers going to see her every day.
And how old is she now? She'd be in her
87.
Wow.
Yeah, she's 87 now.
Well,
maybe 88,
like
getting on to 88 maybe.
Sounds like her later years, though, were much better than, you know, those early years, you know.
Yeah.
Like meeting your stepfather was like the, you know, huge changing point in her life.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And for you, too.
Yeah.
And he's the one that was kind enough to buy you all the records.
Yeah, he was the man.
Brought from
the record shack in New York, and yeah, he was a very kind, very nice person, you know, and you know, he was like my real father, you know.
And so, when you wanted to drop out of school at 14 years old, what did he say about that? And what was his advice? And did he have an education himself? Did he?
He left school also when he was quite young. But he left school. He left school when he was 15.
He was a very successful man.
He let me decide what I wanted to do. You know, and at that time, right, it was legal. I was allowed to leave at that age in those days. You know, I wasn't doing anything illegal. And then when that term finished, you know, I was 14, but you know, if I'd have restarted school again for the next term, I'd have been 15. You know, but I just didn't want to do that, and you know, I didn't see any benefit of the sort of education I was getting at the time, because I had other ideas in my head.
See, if I would have met you and known nothing about your past, just had a casual conversation, I would assume that you had a university degree, because you're a very intelligent man. Are you self-taught? Do you read, or how do you learn? How did you learn about business and restaurants and all these things?
Well, you know, I mean, we're all born with common sense, aren't we? You know, and you know, we should all know, right, what's right and what's wrong, and common sense leads you to do the correct things in your life. You know, and you know, luckily I've always had that. You know, I've always had this common sense of knowing things and being alert to things. You know. And
except when it comes to Subic Bay and what happened to you there, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Mind you, you know,
You think you were set up from the beginning?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been, one thing with me is I've always been too trusting, probably, you know. I've always been too trusting with people. I've always seen
honest, you know, honest people are like that. Honest people, you know, they're honest and they assume everybody else has good intentions as well.
Sure.
And there's some sharks out there.
Well, that's me. You know?
Yeah, that's me too.
That's why I've been done a few times in life, you know, and not through stupidity, you know, but it's just through trust in people.
Yeah.
You know. And then afterwards you look back, God, that person have done that to me, you know.
Yeah.
And because I never
did anything
to
bad too. I know.
To that person, sort of thing. And
I had a friend of 15 years do it to me, one of my best friends. But when money's involved, people do, you know, things.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears here now.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of comments about your video, the first one.
Yeah.
And everybody's just on, you know, God, he's so laid back about, you know, he was with Led Zeppelin. I mean, I would blow my mind if I was with them. And they're asking, can you please tell us about any other experiences you've had with famous bands, like even if it was just backstage or anything, but can you kind of run through the bands that you had contact with and what it was like, and just tell me as much as you can about, you know, rock and roll back in the 60s.
Sure. Well, the association I had with Mel, right, is that, you know, all the big concerts and stuff that he put on, right, I had the freedom to go backstage and meet the artists and talk to the artists and you know, and just feel the vibe of you know, their thing before they went out and done their show, you know. And I was there like with David Bowie.
Well, let's stop, David Bowie. So let's paint a picture. What was it like for those of us who've never done anything like that?
No.
You're backstage at David Bowie's concert. What's going on? What's back there?
Okay, so the David Bowie thing was at the start of the Ziggy Stardust era, you know. And he was married at that time, believe it or not, right? You know, and he was a very nice person. And she would be the person who would be doing his makeup. You know, doing his makeup and you know, all his makeup with the zigzags on his cheek and doing his hair and getting him ready, you know, for the show. And you know, so I saw all that going on. You know, I saw her doing all that. You know, and you know. It was a great experience to see, you know, I mean, to see all that.
Do they, some of these rock stars want to have like special foods and stuff behind, you know, backstage for them, like a buffet and things like that. Was there food back there and drinks? And
yeah, that's right. And they, you know, they did. You know.
Who all's backstage? Like, how many people are back there? Like, is there a bunch of people or just a handful?
Yeah, just a handful of people. You know, not too many.
Did you save your backstage pass? You used to get like I know I've been to some concerts, and you had like the lanyard with the backstage pass on it. Did you keep those?
Yeah, I had some sort of pass. There were security all around the backstage, of course, you know. I did have like something around my neck to show that I was allowed backstage.
I mean, did you keep them to this day, or what did you do with them?
I don't know what I'd done, but you know, you don't put importance on those things at that time, you know.
I would have. I'd have it on my wall.
I know, but you know,
I would have worn it to school.
We never had you know, mobile cameras, you know, because I could have had amazing pictures, but I don't have them, you know. And
you never took a camera with you at any of these events?
Yeah, because they were all these old-fashioned cameras and you know, and stuff, and you know, clumsy, and I never even thought about it at the time. You know, I lived that time for the moment and just let it. And
now.
I let it all happen. You know, and you know. It was great, you know. The memories are in my head.
That's great. This is the way to keep it.
Actually, it's such a shame I never took a photograph. I didn't take photographs of the car, you know, the hearse, you know, because it was an amazing wagon, and you know, it was, that's a shame, you know.
Did you get to talk to David Bowie at all, or meet him, or just see him? Did you get to speak to David Bowie? Or?
Sure, of course.
Wow.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just a nice guy, huh?
Just a nice guy. You know, it was all superficial talk.
Yeah.
There wasn't nothing sort of deep or nothing like that. It was just, you know, superficial talk.
And so, how about Queen? Did you meet Queen?
Yes, I met Queen as well. That was also a backstage thing. Freddie Mercury. Yeah.
Tell us a little more about it. Come on, tell us more.
Well, it's just, you know, I was at backstage, seeing what was going on, the makeup, that, you know.
Tell us what it's like, because like nobody's ever experienced this. So tell us Color it in for us a little bit. Paint a picture. Tell
Yeah,
me a
you
little
see,
more.
you know.
If I walk back there, what would I see? What would I see? Backstage.
Well, with Queen, they did have quite a big entourage backstage.
Okay.
You know, there was like a big entourage of people.
Yeah.
And very atmospheric, as you can imagine, you know. And, you know, I'll just chat, you know, to the band members and, you know, and just see what was going on, basically, you know. And Mel would come every so often to see everything was okay, you know. And
again, and how old would you have been then, roughly?
sorry?
How old would you have been? How old would you have been, roughly?
In those days, I was 35.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think I was about 35. Sometimes the dates get mixed up in my head.
I know,
you
I know.
There's
So
many
did
things.
you ever, you never got intimidated by the fame? Like some people, if they meet someone like that, they can't talk, they're just starstruck. Never bothered you, huh?
No, not at all. No.
Well,
I just took things as they came, and that's how it was, you know. Yeah,
so
I never got starstruck.
Freddie Mercury was just another nice guy, huh?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so how about what other bands?
Supertramp.
Okay.
Yeah, and there were sort of more bands that probably would never have heard of. You know, Hawkwind. They had like this #1 song called Silver Machine, and I actually took him to London to the Rainbow Theatre, 4-day gig there when they had this #1 single, and I watched their concert at the Rainbow Theatre in London. That was around the same sort of era. They'd done a gig at the Royal Ballrooms in Bournemouth, right? And then from there I took them on to London to do then another gig, which was at the Rainbow Theatre in London, yeah. And they were very famous at the time. Yeah, Hawkwind they were called. Very unusual band.
Who else? Anybody else? You think of?
There was quite a few of them. I can't remember all of them. You know, because it was just, for me, it wasn't anything too unusual.
It is for everybody watching, I'll tell you that. They're blown away
Well, I
by
sort of
the
got
things
used
you
to
get
it, I
see.
suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know. I sort of got used to that, you know, and
So cool.
you know, I just sort of accepted that
Now,
that was that.
What about drugs and stuff, backstage and stuff? Was there a lot of that going on back then?
A lot of
or
what, sorry?
Drugs. Was there a lot of like
Yeah.
smoking pot and cocaine, things like that? Or
Well, in those days, I indulged myself a little bit. There would be, you know, the sort of like joint rolling thing, you know, but mainly the roadies would be up to that. You know, the actual artists themselves, they just concentrated on that.
Yeah,
They'd have a drink,
Yeah.
you know, they'd have a drink, you know, like a cocktail or whatever, or you know. But it was mainly the crew and the roadies that would. You know,
I was a
you know, there would be the smell of the marijuana in the dressing room, you know, and it was mainly the roadies who were up to all that.
I worked with IATSE, and I worked as a roadie with Prince, Black Sabbath,
Oh, fantastic!
and you know, Ozzy Osbourne. But if they would see me rolling a joint or something backstage while I was setting up, I would have got fired, you know, kicked out of the union and everything. But there were so many people there, you know, using drugs. That was fine. But as far as the crew, this is back in the '80s.
Yeah,
But it's all changed a lot now.
look at that.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about that time of your life? You know, that stories you remembered, or
Well, there was so much going on, you know, and the thing is, you know, I don't want to feel like I'm blowing my own trumpet.
that's what you're. No, we just want
You
your
know,
story.
because basically, you know, because I've done so many things, right? It can be so hard for people to believe that I've done so much, and that's why I don't tell anybody.
Well, I believe
You know, I don't tell people. You know, and you know, basically, you know, I'm a private person, and if somebody really wants to dig into my life, I'll talk about it and whatever, right? You know, but normally I don't. You know.
We had 6,000 people watch your first video in one day, and they want to know. They want you to tell them as much as you possibly can. They love the interview, and they're just asking for more. You know, and so
Sure.
I promised I would ask you.
Yeah.
So anything you're willing to share with us, you know, as far as
Yeah.
experiences.
Well, I mean, there's so many things, right? You know, I mean, I could write a book, but you know, the thing is, right? It becomes sort of unbelievable then, you know.
Tell me something that's unbelievable.
You know, when I was, I've been shot at,
tell me the
by
story.
these
How were you
Hmong
shot?
tribes people, right?
By who?
Bullets. When I was making this film about these yellow leaf people,
Okay.
they lived on the Laos-Thai border, right? I basically lived with them, flying a wall film documentary about these
This is on the
very
Thai
weird
border.
people,
Yeah.
you know? They're called the yellow leaf people.
Okay.
And I went out there, our crew went out there to make a film about them, you know?
Yeah.
And, small crew, 3 of us, as you know. And, we would go out with them, when they were hunting and this and that.
How did they hunt? What did they use?
Well, they had spears and blowpipes
Oh, wow.
and stuff, And, but they were very strange people. There was one person that was there, right? He was a bit of a hindrance, and he was. His name was Eugene Long, right? He was a missionary, and he belonged to the New Tribe Mission,
Okay.
right? Now he tried to make things very difficult about us filming these yellow leaf people, but he spoke their language, and he had actually built like a house near where they were. By the way, the reason that they were called the yellow leaf people is because when their houses turned yellow, they would move on and build new houses, But they had a very strange language. It's sort of like a very sort of singing, clicky type of language. But he spoke the language. So, we needed him for translation,
Yeah.
But he didn't really. He thought we were there to do an expose on the this new tribe mission, because several exposes had been done
so
on
he didn't
missionaries
trust you, yeah.
in those days, So he wasn't very forthcoming, And in the end, he had to, because we complained to the Thai government, about him, that he was trying to stop what we were doing. But anyhow. That's besides the point. We're going off on a tangent, because there's so much
It's all
stuff
right.
going on.
Tangents are fine.
We're going off on a tangent again, right? But the thing is, right, okay. So it was all about them, right, these people, and how they lived, how they hunted, and
What did they hunt?
wild pigs. I saw them kill a wild pig
How'd they do that?
with spears,
Wow.
and then they brought it back to their camp, and they roasted it over like an open fire.
Kind of like here in the Philippines.
But these were the real wild pigs,
Yeah,
what do they call it?
Boar?
Yeah,
Boar.
And so they would bring it back, and they would make a big sort of deal of it,
Yeah.
with music, and play their instruments, and then the best part of that pig was the fat. They would share the fat out.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it the same here?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the best part of the pig. It was. It was basically a fly in the wall thing. Now, part of that particular tribe had been kidnapped by another tribe called the Hmong tribe. Okay, there was about. This is what Eugene Long told us. The missionary guy. He said, they'd kidnapped some of them and taken them to work in the opium fields.
Oh, wow.
About 25 of them. So the crew, my crew, my partner and his wife, decided to go look for them, which actually wasn't actually part of the film. What we were doing. But
How big was your crew, by the way?
sorry,
How big was your crew?
only 3 of us.
Oh, 3 of you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it was me, Steve, right? He came up with the subject matter, because he encountered these people before on his travels, and he was that sort of person. So we went out looking for them, and asking questions all over the place, right? We found ourselves way out there in the opium fields, right, where they grow the opium, and through information we got, there's a lot of detective work,
Yeah.
we found them.
Wow.
We found them very dishevelled, dirty, and there was like all they had for cover was like a sheet for cover, which was tied to some trees, and they were all there.
Are they like rebels or something? Are they an actual tribe with like women and children, or is it just like men? Or
there were some children, there were some women, and there were men, mostly men.
and how many were there approximately?
About 25.
25.
Yeah, we found them
okay.
they looked in a bad way, and we started filming them.
Yeah.
You know, got the I mean, it was a big deal, you know, doing, getting the camera out, because a great Bolex camera, you know, one of these old land cameras, but very sturdy and strong. You know, and we started filming them, and basically, as we were filming them, right, you know, that some of the Hmong tribes people who were sort of looking after them saw us filming, and suddenly, bang, bullets started flying. You know. And I said to Steve, we better go, you know, Susie, we better go. And, you know, got hold of the camera, right, and we started running through the jungle, you know, to where the Jeep was. I dropped the camera, right, and we lost the footage. You know, the camera, the camera, the hatch opened up, and you know, we lost the footage that, you know, but we did get away, and we got to the Jeep, and we just went, you know.
What about the captives? They just never were found. They were
no. We went back, right, to the tribe, which is a long way away, you know, and then we just carried on with the film, and it was a 55-minute film that we made, you know.
Right. Let's end part number 4 here, because that's a great place to end it, and we'll see what happens in part number 5.